Welcome to Tony Martignetti, nonprofit radio coverage of BBCon 2012, Blackboard Conference. We're outside Washington, D.C., the Gaylord Convention Center. With me now is Chuck Longfield. Chuck is the chief scientist for Blackboard. Chuck, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks very much. Your session topic yesterday was Don't Leave Money on the Table, 10 Proven Practices for Success with Matching Gifts. Let's start with the very basic. Why should a charity spend time with matching gifts? And there's your forms, there's compliance, there's going to be back and forth with companies. Why is this worth it?
Yeah. Currently about a little over $1 billion a year is given by corporations to matching gifts, about $1.4 billion. So about 20,000 companies in America that will match their gifts. About half of the Fortune 500 have matching gifts. They'll match donations, and a number of them will also match volunteer hours. So for example, if you volunteer at a nonprofit and you work for Microsoft, they'll actually pay you $14 for every hour that they'll pay the nonprofit $14 for every hour they volunteer. And some companies, if you give them a $1,000 donation or a $100 donation, they'll match it 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1. So it's, in a sense, it's kind of newfound money. Cost of fundraising isn't all that high. There are some compliance issues and paper forms and such, but that's getting easier. So in general, there's a big opportunity, and I've done a lot of research that has shown that most companies are not doing nearly enough in this area, and they could be substantially increasing their revenue several percent if they pursued some of these practices.
How recent is the reimbursement of volunteer time?
It's been in place for a while now. It's a relatively new thing, but it's been in place for a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's worth the small administrative time.
That's right. In the past, the way the process worked was the employee was encouraged to go to the HR department. More recently, go to the intranet at their company, get a form, fill out the form, send it into the nonprofit. The nonprofit indicates that they indeed got the donation. They send it on to the company. The company, over time, has been outsourcing this to other companies to do the paperwork. So it's actually been somewhat burdensome.
That's a little laborious.
But the internet and a lot of links now have made this easier. So most employees now are just encouraged to go to a site. They can indicate that they made this donation, and the paperwork is all done. So, for example, there's a company in New Jersey, the JK Group, that works with many of the Fortune 500 companies, and they have a website called Easy Match. And if you use Easy Match, the processing for the nonprofit, for the employee, and for the corporation is made much easier.
Okay, and just give listeners the name of that company one more time.
Well, the company actually is kind of in the background, but their website is called Easy Match. EasyMatch.com.
Okay,
yeah.
Letters E and Z.
No, I'm sorry, EasyMatch.com.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. So what was the first piece of advice that you shared on building this matching gift program?
Well, one of the pieces of advice, which actually wasn't the first, but I'll start with it, is to benchmark against your peers. So in different organizations that have different resources, there are organizations that are probably like yours that realize a greater percentage of matching gift dollars. And so when you're actually looking at the opportunity, so for example, if you're a university, there are many universities now that are matching 5, 6, 7% of their total revenue with matching gifts.
Excellent.
So if you're doing 1% and you're a university, you'd say, well, how are they getting 5% if I'm only getting 1%? If you're a public broadcasting station, the good public broadcasting stations are getting 3 or 4%, but most public broadcasting stations are getting well under 1%. So they can look at their numbers and they can say, well, why am I not getting 3 or 4%? So it's a good way by benchmarking first to quantify the gain that you might realize.
And it does vary considerably, it sounds like, across different charitable missions.
Well, it does. And in fact, the public broadcasting stations could probably achieve the 5, 6, 7%, but they would need to actually start doing some of the things that comes more easily to a university, like knowing where their people work. So a university can collect that more easily, whereas a public broadcasting station might have more trouble finding out that you work for IBM.
Okay.
But But still, the real issue is that if you know how well some of your better peers are performing, you can actually estimate how much money is at stake for you. And then the actual practices are relatively easy. I joked in my presentation that there's a surgeon, Atul Gawande, who wrote a great book called Checklist Manifesto, and he pointed out in the book that if doctors washed their hands, they would get 10,000 fewer patients a year would die of infections. But doctors don't always wash their hands. In fact, a substantial number don't. Well, in matching gifts, the analogy is that if you want substantially more matching gift dollars, all you have to do is remember who matched last year and remind them when they give this year to match again. So it's not rocket science, but if you do it, you actually would boost your matching gifts. There's a few practices like that are relatively straightforward.
Okay, you want to share another one?
Yeah, sure.
I love these simple, fun. Well, I consider them fun.
Exactly.
Simple and fun. Yeah.
That's right. So another one is that a lot of people now are moving to websites to make donations. It's relatively easy to put on your website another line which says that if you work for a matching gift company, please match. And you can actually hyperlink it to the list of matching companies, the 20,000 companies. Oh. So somebody, if they do work, they can look up Apple Computer, they can click on Apple Computer, indicate that they work for Apple, and the process can begin. And in fact, with somebody like Apple, the next thing you'd be directed to do is click on Easy Match, and the process basically would be finished. You'd type in your employee ID number, indicate that you made the gift, and you'd be off and running.
Now, is that list of 20,000 proprietary? Do you have to be working with a company to be able to hyperlink to the list?
Yes. It's a very low cost, and it's made available by two companies. Blackbaud is one, HEP is another, HEP is another, and it costs about $1,000 to license the list of companies, and an awful lot of companies already license it and put it on their website. But yes, a small or mid-sized nonprofit that's not doing that should do it because it's relatively easy, and then the donor is self-servicing themselves. They're indicating it and moving on. Yep.
You got another one like this? Easy and fun.
Yeah. Well, another one is that if you're a regional nonprofit, so say you're a nonprofit in the Houston, Texas market, and ExxonMobil is a big employer in your market, or if you're a Bank of America and you're in their market, you can actually get their blank form, and if you know some of your employees work for ExxonMobil, when you thank them, you can actually just send them the form or send them an email hyperlink directly to the ExxonMobil website so they can go and make the donation. And it's relatively easy to determine that some of these people work for Exxon because they might already have volunteered their email address, and their email address might be chuck@exxon.com.
Okay, so really some pretty simple research and making it so much easier for the donor to contact the company.
That's correct. That's correct. And in fact, if you look at the universities that are getting this 5, 6, 7% more money aren't doing anything more than these basics, plus making sure they find out where you work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are strategies for finding out where you work? We mentioned public radio probably doesn't know that. How can a small mid-sized shop get that information?
Yeah. So probably the best way is that if you're doing phone-a-thons or any type of telemarketing, speaking with your donors. So for example, in public broadcasting, they have pledge drives. Well, when the person calls in and pledges, you simply ask one more question: where do you work, and whether your company matches, and you're off and running. If you do telemarketing, you can call. Sometimes organizations call and thank their donors, and when you thank them, you could ask them if they work for a matching company. Yeah. You can buy this data from some third-party vendors. That source isn't so great yet that there isn't really an easy way to give them a list of your donors and for a third party to actually tell you where they work. But those companies are trying to get better at that. LinkedIn obviously is a source, and so sometimes you can simply go online, and what a small or mid-sized nonprofit could be encouraged to do is just go online and look up your major donors, your bigger donors. So if somebody's giving $500, $1,000, type them into LinkedIn, see if you can find out where they work. If it's a matching company, pursue them for a matching gift.
Excellent. I love these.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I made you digress into easy and fun. Are there other strategies you want to share that are maybe bigger topic items?
No, actually, the ironic thing about many of these things is that they're actually relatively straightforward. One of the things that is more complex and could actually make it easier, but Easy Match is kind of doing away with it, is some organizations can actually take the form, fill it out for you, send it to you, and all you have to do is sign it and send it back in. If you're a national nonprofit, that's harder because there's so many matching gift forms. But it turns out in most cities in America, major cities, 3 or 4 or 5 companies represent 80% of the matching gifts in that area. So in many cases, you don't have to work that hard for it. One other thing you could do, which is...
That would probably be true of a small local organization also.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. It's just, most of the money is coming from the big employers in town.
A couple of employers.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things you can do, which is kind of a clever thing, is that say you have a lot of people who work for a company and it doesn't match gifts, but you may have 20 or 30 employees that work for that company. What some people have found success in is actually just making a list of who those 30 people are and going and visiting the company and their corporate relations and talking to them about, well, would you make a donation to us, either because you'll match your employee gifts or you'll just make a donation, advertise it, and you'll know 30 of your employees are going to be thrilled because they support the organization as well. And so it's another way to engage companies and promote it. And again, universities have gotten very good at that practice as well and pursuing people.
We have just about 2 more minutes.
Okay.
What else? I'm just going to throw it out. What else would you like to share around growing this pretty simple to build and scale matching gift program?
Yeah. Well, the one thing, this isn't a technique, but just to show the opportunity, when I said that there's $1.4 billion donated, that's about 10% of corporate philanthropy. So corporations make many other donations to nonprofits, but about 10% of it is matching gift contributions, $1.4 billion. That is less than, and in most cases fairly well less than 1% of when I said that there's a 5 to 7% opportunity. And so there's tremendous room to actually raise total corporate philanthropy, matching gift philanthropy by $1 billion or $2 billion. I had a question this morning about would that actually lead corporations to cut back on their matching gift program if all of a sudden more people were doing it. And I've talked to people both that work at the companies as well as other knowledgeable people, and they joke that it's still such a small percentage of total corporate philanthropy that we could easily double it and the corporations really wouldn't balk at it.
Okay.
So I definitely encourage nonprofits to go after this money, and I think it'll be there.
All right, let's take that rationalization off the table then.
Yeah.
You'll end up cutting us back if we do more of it.
Yeah.
Let's eliminate that.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Chuck Longfield is
Chief Scientist.
Chief Scientist for Blackbaud. Thank you very much, Chuck.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much for spending time. It's a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tony.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
It's Tony Martignetti, Nonprofit Radio coverage of BBCon 2012.